You're good to go.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our program, In My Own Words. My name is Tali Dippold, and I'm the new CEO of the Holocaust Memorial Resource and Education Center of Florida. And I'm thrilled to be here with all of you. I'm looking forward to meeting each and every one of you here joining us today in the months ahead. So please be in touch and we'll set something up. So the mission of the HMREC is to use the history and lessons of the Holocaust to build a just and caring community free of anti-Semitism and all forms of prejudice and bigotry. Through our extensive outreach of educational and cultural programs and exhibits, we use the lessons of the Holocaust as a tool to teach us the principles of good citizenship to thousands of people of all ages, religions, races, sexual orientations, abilities, and backgrounds each year. We want to thank you for being here with us today. You're the most important part of the work that we do. Our In My Own Words program is one of the ways that we use the lessons of the Holocaust to make them more accessible through stories, as stories humanize the victims and allow us to bring the issues to a more contemporary setting. We're especially proud of our In My Own Words virtual event series. In fact, during the pandemic, I tuned into many sessions myself, and they offered a feeling of community that we all lacked during that time. So we invite you to view past episodes where we teach and learn about the history through the eyes of the survivors. We get a picture of what happened, including the fear, the resilience, and the resistance. So please visit our website and you'll be able to see those past programs. Hearing from survivors and individuals who are doing this important work, hearing the stories gives us clues into how we can find strength and courage to make major changes within ourselves. At the core of all of this is human behavior, after all. Stories connect us all. They're like a universal language, and we're so fortunate that today we get to learn a lot about stories. So they say stories through pictures. They say that pictures are worth 1,000 words. Today's presentation by Erez Kaganovitz, Changing the Way We Talk About the Holocaust, explores the way we use visual storytelling as a powerful way to spark curiosity and empathy. By sharing the stories of the Holocaust through the deeply affecting medium of photography, we're able to relate to and internalize the individual human stories of the Holocaust. This allows us to both remember and learn from the past and work towards creating a better tomorrow. Erez Kaganovitz is a native of Tel Aviv, Israel. He's a photographer and speaker. He is the human behind the Humans of Tel Aviv, Humans of Israel, and Humans of the Holocaust projects. Through his work, Erez has helped bridge a cultural gap in society, bringing understanding, emotional connection, and unity to us around the world. So we're very fortunate to have Erez here joining us from Tel Aviv, and thank you for being here with us today, Erez.
So first of all, thank you so much for, wait a second, I need to see if can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
I'm good, okay. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. This is a great privilege. Thank you for the introduction. And hello, Florida. First of all, I've got to say that this is not a formal lecture. It's not a formal speaking engagement. So I do encourage you to open your camera. So I will be able to see you and I would love to interact with you. And I'm going to ask you questions about photography and about social media. So feel free, to barge in if you have something that you want to ask or something that you want to add. And we will have time for a Q&A in the end, but, feel free. And I actually do encourage you to ask questions. So let's start. Okay, 1 second, please. Okay, so the Humans of the Holocaust Project. A little bit about myself. My name is Erez Kaganovitz. I was born and raised in Haifa. which is the most sane place in Israel that I can say. I'm living for Tel Aviv for the past 10 years. I'm a photographer and a storyteller, and I'm the human behind the Humans of Tel Aviv, Humans of Israel, and Humans of the Holocaust projects. And I'm also a grandson of a Holocaust survivor. And me and Tali, we just before the Zoom session started, she asked me about my last name and how to pronounce it. And my last name is Kaganovitz, and I'm a grandson of a Holocaust survivor. And if there is one thing that my late grandfather, the Holocaust survivor, asked me, is no matter what you're going to do in your life, don't ever change your last name. And this is something that, I hold dear to my heart. And even though, it's really hard to pronounce outside of Israel, I never change it. I never changed my last name, and I'm not planning to change my last name. And it's a great memory. It's a great tribute to my grandfather. So a little bit, I would love to explain why did I even start a project like Humans of Tel Aviv, Humans of Israel, and Humans of the Holocaust. And the thing is that ever since I remember myself, ever since I was a kid, I was mesmerized by different cultures and different languages. And I remember that I told myself that when I will have enough time and enough money, I would probably hop on the first jet plane and will go travel and see the world. And the thing is that this is exactly what I did. And when you're traveling the world, what is the first question that, probably, somebody will ask you? Where are you coming from? And when I told people that I'm coming from Israel, you could actually see how their facial expressions started to change because people don't realize that I'm coming from Israel. And that is probably because of my accent, which I acquired after watching endless episodes of Seinfeld and Friends. And the thing is that, when I told people that I'm coming from Israel, you could actually see how their facial expressions started to change. And then come the questions. So you're coming from Israel. Isn't that place where people are getting exploited all the time? Or you're coming from Israel. Isn't that place where you're actually at perpetual war with your neighbors? And I was a little bit upset that people have this misconceptions about the place I was coming from. And I remember that I told myself that, if I had the ability back then to actually take those people back with me to Israel, and Tel Aviv, so they can see in their own eyes what Israel and Tel Aviv is all about, maybe, just maybe I will be able to change those misconceptions. But I couldn't really do that back then. I was speaking about like 20 years ago. But luckily enough, this guy came along almost, 14, 15 years ago. And I know there's a lot of criticism right now in the past few years about Facebook, about social media, and about Zuckerberg. But the thing is that, back then, 14 years ago, he gave us the ability to actually, to sit at the comfort of our own living room and to upload a story and to upload a picture. And if that picture and that story is actually, fascinating and interesting, people will actually, engage with that. And that was something pretty awesome, pretty amazing. So luckily enough, 10 years ago, I stumbled upon Humans of New York. How many people here are familiar with Humans of New York? Raise your hand. Okay, so when I saw Humans of New York, it was like an epiphany for me because I realized that, I have the ability to upload a story and to upload a picture. And if it will be interesting and if it will be something that will catch the eye of people all around the world, maybe I will be able to tell the Israeli story, the Tel Avivian story. And I remember that I opened a Google search page and I wrote Humans of Tel Aviv. And I was a little bit anxious because I didn't know if somebody else already understood the potential of creating a project like this. And I hit the search button and I said, well, nobody opened a project like this. Well, maybe it's about time that I'm going to do this. But I promised myself one thing. Under no circumstances, I'm not going to do hasbara. I'm not going to do propaganda. I'm going to show the reality, the complexity of living in a place like Israel, and I'm going to show the good parts as well as the bad parts. And I'm going to let other people connect the dots for themselves. And this is exactly how I started doing this project and started Humans of Tel Aviv. Now, one of the things that I learned about, doing a project on social media, like Humans of Tel Aviv and Humans of Israel and Humans of the Holocaust, is that, today we're bombarded with so much information. There are so many apps who are trying to get our attention. There is, TikTok and YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp and Netflix and video commercials and radio commercials and TV commercials. So our very own limited, we have a very limited attention span. So I realized that, it's not enough that we have a good story, and it's not enough that you have a good picture. You need to have some kind of a combination between the picture and the story, so people will actually, engage with that. So whatever I'm trying to do in my project, if it could be Humans of Tel Aviv or Israel or the Holocaust, is to tell the story in a fascinating way, in a way that people will actually, relate to that. Now, I want to ask you, what do you think the story behind this picture, which I posted on Humans of Tel Aviv? Now, go wild. Don't hesitate to say what you're thinking. Gil, what do you think the story behind this one? Unmute yourself, please. But you have to unmute yourself, Gil.
Now try it again to unmute.
Hello.
Hey, Gil, how are you doing?
Yes, good. Erez, just to remind you, we were hoping to meet with you in Tel Aviv 2 weeks ago. I'm the one who reached out from Bernard Zell.
So now like everything is like dropping. So if you know the answer, don't tell it.
Anyway, Erez, I just wanted to say we will hope to meet with you next summer.
Hopefully.
I'm gonna guess that she is an Israeli artist working in the back alleys of Shuka Carmel, and she does wooden sculpture work, and she is the granddaughter of Holocaust survivors. Just a guess.
Okay, so we have an artist. Aaron, what do you think?
Maybe she's wielding this thing for the first time.
So we have an artist, we have an architect. Joni, what do you think? But you have to unmute yourself, Joni. Lauren, is there a chance you can unmute everybody? Just unmute everybody.
No, I'll just go wild. She's building a home.
She's building a home. Okay, that's interesting. Jeff, what do you think?
I think that she's donating her time to build a home.
Okay, so we have an architect builder, we have an artist, we have maybe a volunteer trying to make a better world. But the story behind this picture was actually about circumcision. Now I can see the faces of people, are moving, a little bit uncomfortable. Well, I will tell you what I decided, to post this picture the way I did. Well, the thing is that I was walking in Jaffa streets and I met Netta, and Netta is a journalist. And a few years ago, and she told me that during that time, she actually published a story about the different mindsets in Israel, in young generation of young parents in Israel about circumcision. Now, this is a very taboo subject in the Israeli public. Now, you got to realize that, 30 years ago, and nobody, would even make a fuss about circumcision in Israel. It will be something that, pretty much, every young parent will probably, will do that ritual. But in the last 10 years, or maybe the last 5 years, mainly in the center of Tel Aviv, and mainly, in Pardes Chana Kalkul, which is villages up north in Israel, people are starting to rethink the ritual of circumcision. Now, the thing is that, I could have taken this picture, without the circular saw, and I could have taken the picture only as a headshot and tell the story. But because I took the picture, with the circular saw and the way that, Netta is actually holding that circular saw, something in that combination made that picture very viral, and it reached a lot of people around the world. And there was actually a discussion, about pros and cons about that ritual. And this is something about, social media. you have to create something interesting. It's not enough that you have a good story. It's not enough that you have a good picture. You need to have that combination so it will actually, resonate one another. And the great thing about, Zoom conversation is that I can see, the faces of the people that I'm actually interacting with. And I can tell you that Wilford almost fell from his chair, when I saw his reaction. And this is exactly the reaction I'm actually, aiming for on social media. So I'm always trying to find something interesting. When this lady, told me that all of her life people saw her as something weird or something different, and when I saw this, this traffic light in Florentine, I said, this is a nice combination. The same things, goes along, to this lady who told me her name is Miri, and Miri told me that for her, she's a modern Orthodox living in Tel Aviv, and she told me that for her it was really hard to live in Tel Aviv because she's a modern Orthodox. And it's really hard for her to express her Judaism in Tel Aviv because in Tel Aviv, it's really hard for her to find kosher food. And it's really hard for her to actually, to observe Shabbat. So when I saw that poster, in a bus stop in Tel Aviv, I said, well, this is a nice combination. And I asked Miri to actually join me. And I took this picture the way that I did. So I'm always trying to find those connections. Even this picture for that matter, sometimes people are asking me, if I need to choose only one picture that will actually tell the DNA that we have in Tel Aviv, I usually will show this picture because in this picture, you can see the freedom of religion and freedom of religion that we have in Tel Aviv. So, I always try to find, those magic moments, those moments that actually you have clashes of cultures, when people are, and this picture, you don't have to be this amazing photographer, by the way, to take this picture. You just need to know your surroundings. And I took this picture a few years ago. And the thing is that, it was Friday morning. I know that a lot of people will probably, will go to the beach. And I saw those young ladies in the back of my camera. And I saw this young ultra-Orthodox guy walking to their direction. And I knew that, this probably there's going to be, something interesting, in Shenkin Street, because just along the road, probably 100 meters, down along the road, you have a big synagogue of the Bells community. And once again, you don't have to be this amazing photographer for taking this picture. You just need to know your surroundings. What do you think the story behind this one? Between Gloria and Jonathan, why do you think, they actually met? What do you think, Fred?
Let me make a comment about the circumcision one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Circumcision has come a long way with her holding the saw the way she was. Anyway, on this one, I would say a relative, he's holding the child, trying to figure out where that was shot, the background. But a relative holding, the man holding the child, and they're related.
What do you think is the relation between Gloria and Jonathan?
Perhaps grandson, not seeing the full shot, full face of the fellow. I would say probably a grandchild.
Okay, so we have a grandchild, so they're actually, related, is their family. Joni, what do you think?
I actually had that same reaction. I was looking at the child and thinking maybe they're related. So I don't really have anything new to add to that. I'm happy
go ahead.
I'm happy to see the happiness.
Yeah, you can see the human connection. You can see the love.
Yeah.
What do you think, Lynn?
I fathom a guess that it's father and son.
Okay, you're pretty close. You're pretty close. Well, the story behind this one is that Glory is actually the gift kid, is actually the babysitter of Yonatan. And the thing is that in Israel, it's we call this the tachlis approach, which means that people will not go around the bush. And if they have something to ask you, they will ask you, in a very direct way. And the thing is that, I asked Glory, can you please tell me what are the reactions that you're getting in the Israeli street? And he told me that most of the time, people will be really polite and will ask him in a very polite way. But some of the people, will not go around the bush and will ask him in a very direct and non-polite way. And when they do so, he will just say, listen, I am the father, but Yonatan actually, got all the genes from his mother, and, just walk away. So you also have those people, in Israel. But as I said, I always trying to find something interesting, something human, something that people can actually, relate to. And I posted this picture on the International Memorial Day of the Holocaust a few years ago, and it went viral. And this picture went viral because, in Israel, most of the people, will realize what they're actually seeing, in a second. And people who come, from the Jewish world, probably, will realize what they're seeing in this picture in a second. But a lot of people from around the world didn't realize what they're actually seeing. And I got a lot of messages from people who asked me, why did those young people tattooed, a barcode on their wrists? And the thing is that this picture went really viral. And the story behind this picture, wait a second, let's do something like this. Fred, what do you think about this picture and about this tattoo?
Let me ask you, in Israel, is tattoo artistry as common as it is here in the States?
It's common. It's even more than common. Every second person you will see in Tel Aviv probably has some kind of a tattoo.
I asked you that because, I don't know, I grew up knowing about numbers on people's arms and what it was for. And then today there's so much freedom with tattoo, and it is an art form, but there's always in the back of my mind a relationship between what happened, 70 plus years ago. Here, are they on like a bus or a train, and all of them are together? Because you have different ages here. Am I correct with that?
Don't think too much. When you see this picture and you're seeing this tattoo, what do you think? Do you think this is a good way to commemorate the memory of the Holocaust?
I'm not sure of that personally. I mean, that's me speaking. I don't know. That's me. My impression is it was an interesting photo, but then the relationship of having it on the Day of Remembrance, I'm not sure on that one personally.
I think
Go ahead, Lynn. Go ahead. It's an open discussion. Go ahead, Lynn. What do you think?
I think it demonstrates strength, victory, and connection. They all are wearing the same number. So they're all descendants of the same person.
And do you think this is
Can
a
you hear
proper
me?
way to commemorate the memory of the Holocaust survivors?
Yes, personally, yes.
Okay.
Jackie wants to share
Can you-
something. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I have a question. It's not a question, it's a comment.
Go ahead.
I honor young people for doing this, if indeed that's what they're doing here, is commemorating a relative who was a victim. I'm the daughter of a survivor, and I grew up with my mom's number. And my sister My sister has tattoos. Both of my children have lots of tattoos. I do not, because I think I'm second generation. I'm too close to it, because I remember a time when no one I ever knew had tattoos except my mother, except that number on her arm. So I personally would never do such a thing, but I have come to understand that the context is so different for other people in terms of how culture changes, that I don't have a horrified response to this. I appreciate young people expressing their remembrance of
So there's some
the
kind of
event and
complexity
their
in your
family.
answers. You
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah.
and I always say, there's isn't like a school answer when you're seeing this picture and when you're seeing this tattoo.
Mhm.
And
Right.
mainly in Israel, even in Israel, there was a big discussion about this. I wouldn't say a trend, but along of young people who decided, to commemorate the memory of their grandparents by tattooing their Auschwitz number on their wrists.
Mhm.
Now, the thing is that, according to Judaism, you're not allowed to tattoo on your body. So there was also a lot of discussion in Israel about the fact that people, tattooed, actually, decided to commemorate the memory of their grandparents by tattooing their grandfather Auschwitz number on their wrists. And the thing is that, I will tell you the backstory of this picture. In this picture, you can see the arms of Yosef Diamant grandkids who decided to commemorate his memory. Yosef Diamant was an Auschwitz survivor. And you can see there's a tiny diamond near the number, because in German, Diamant is actually diamond. And in the picture, you can see the first number. You can see the arm of Arik Diamant. And Arik, in the beginning, he thought about tattooing his grandfather a number, and he went to his grandfather and asked him, grandfather, what do you think if I will tattoo your Auschwitz number on my wrist? In the beginning, Yosef was so appalled, from the thoughts of his grandkid actually, tattooing his Auschwitz number on his wrist. And he told Eric, I don't think this is a good idea. But then, they started to have a conversation, and Eric told him, something, let me think about it, and I will come back to you in 2 weeks, and we'll see how we can, how and even if we're going to move forward. And after 2 weeks, Eric came to his grandfather, and the first thing that his grandfather asked him, Eric, when your son or when your grandkid will see this number, would you tell him about me? Or would you tell him about what happened to me in the Holocaust? And the thing is that was the moment, Eric told me that, he decided that he's actually, going to do this tattoo. Now, the thing is that I published this picture on the International Memorial Day of the Holocaust, and it went viral. It reached more than 1 million people from all over the world. And I got a lot of messages from the Arab and Muslim world, from people who told me, listen, this is the first time we ever heard about the Holocaust. And this is the first time we realized why the state of Israel was even established. And I was really moved, because I realized that I have the power for, to better inform and to better educate people about the history of the Holocaust, and about even about the creation of the state of Israel. And I remember that I told myself, well, this is a great tool for, better informing and to better educating people about the Holocaust. Now, after you have this background, I would love to hear your thoughts. We have people who think that this is not a proper way, and some of the people think that this is a proper way to commemorate the Holocaust. So, Fred, after you have, I see that you're already raising your hand, so go ahead.
Well, the first
Yeah,
question.
Go ahead.
The girl in the foreground, she has two tattoos. Am I saying that right? You have the arm, the first arm, you have the second arm of the same person. Is that another tattoo at the top of her arm?
at the top of her arm, you
Right
have the first
there.
hand, you have the second hand with the number, you have the grandchild with a clock. It's also the number, and you have the grandkid. You can see that she actually has this, she has the diamond, and then she has the number.
Okay, it's the, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but it's on the second arm of the girl in black, dressed in black. There's a tattoo, same arm as her watch is on. Am I
Okay.
right with that or wrong?
I'm seeing only a number. The girl with the watch.
Erez, I think he might think that it's the same person. The first arm that's in the foreground, and then the
Okay.
second one with the watch is a different person, but the sleeves are the same color. So it seems like it's the same person.
I got you. Okay. So no. It's a different, it's two different people.
But no,
It's two different.
that clarifies it, because looking at it, you see, the impression was 1, 2, 3 people, when in fact, there's 4 people, correct?
There are 4 people who are holding, their hands together. And by the way, I always learn new things about this picture. And I realized, only a month ago, somebody, mentioned it in one of my Zoom conversations, that in the first hand that you're seeing of Eric is actually, the font that you actually see here, it's actually a German font. And in the beginning, when I took this picture, I didn't realize that. But that is actually, a German font.
I wanted to comment
Yeah,
on
of course.
on a personal side. My father never considered himself a survivor because he escaped when the Nazis took over the Czech lands, and he went to China, and he survived that manner.
He actually from the Sudetenland?
He was, no, not from the city. He was from Prague. He was from Benešov,
Prague.
near Prague. He was at Charles University, and then he was in the Czech army actually when the Nazis took over and invaded in March of 1939.
Okay.
He escaped in May. But 44 relatives, including, he was an only child, including his parents, perished. And there were really no survivors for me ever to even see the numbers on their arms, is how I think of it. But I want to tell you a small story. I can't tell you who he was, but the man, the architect that originally drew the sketch for our new Holocaust Museum for Hope and Humanity in Orlando, which will happen in the next few years, he actually was at the beginning, he's not Jewish. And at first, he was very well known in Orlando. And so it was a big thing to get him involved. And he lives in my neighborhood. And when we first talked to him about it, he wasn't sure if he wanted to do it. But then he thought about it for a while. Oops, sorry. He thought about it for a while. And then he came back and told us the story that when he was 10 years old and he was visiting New York with his parents, and they were in a place where he saw the tattooed numbers on their arm, and he asked his parents about him, and it was about that. And it was the first time he'd ever heard of the Holocaust. And it kept coming back to him, that thought of how he learned about it. And that was one of his decisions, that he would do our first early sketches. And he's, I think a lot of people do learn by this, so to me, it's a good thing that maybe these descendants might want to do that, because people will always ask them when they go outside of Israel, what is this? And then they can share the story of what the Holocaust is. So just like you're saying, these Arabs that contacted you today, amazingly, there's a lot of people that still either don't know about it, but surely we know also don't believe it. And I think the descendants have the strongest voice to speak up. So that's what I would have to say.
Well, thank you for sharing. And this is exactly, by the way, one of the grandkids actually said that she can travel all over the world, and people will, engage with her, and people will come and ask her, why do you have this tattoo? Why do you have this number? Mm-hmm. And for her, this is a great way, to better inform and to better educate. And when she's traveling in Israel, and sometimes she's getting into Arab villages, people will approach her and we'll start to have a conversation and we'll ask her, why do you have this number on your wrist? And, in my eyes, this is a great way, to commemorate memory of Holocaust survivors. But on the other hand, you have people, who disagree with this, and people who feel that this is not a proper way, to commemorate memory of the Holocaust. But once again, I'm not saying what is right or what is wrong, and I think that every person, is entitled, to have their own opinion. But I want to tell you that because of this picture, it gave me, a lot of thoughts about, commemoration of the Holocaust. But back then, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I didn't even thought, that I will create a project like Humans of the Holocaust. But the thing is that, in 2019, I stumbled upon this this article that actually, this study that showed that, that 66% of young millennials never heard about the Holocaust, and that 50% of those young millennials could not even name one concentration camp or ghetto. And this was a study that was, conducted by the Claims Conference. And in the beginning, I was amazed, with these numbers. This was like, it sent a shiver down my spine. How come, so many, young Americans never heard about the Holocaust? But, that was only one part of the equation, one part of the problem. The other part of the problem was the fact that we have this rise in anti-Semitism, not only in the States, but actually, all around the world. Everybody, can remember the deadliest attack on the Tree of Life Synagogue in 2019 in Pittsburgh. And according to surveys that was, along the years, the last years, by the ADL actually showed, the increase, the influx of anti-Semitic attacks all across the States. Now, when you have this combination, this is a lethal combination between, ignorance, that people are not aware of what happened in the Holocaust. And on the other hand, you have this rise in anti-Semitic attacks. Now, if you're not aware of what, of what anti-Semitism can actually cause, how can we actually fight that? How can we actually, decrease the level of anti-Semitic attacks? And when I thought about it, I realized that, the problem was that, we can be mad of those young millennials. And we can say that, they are only following, the Kardashians, and they're only following, all, 50 Cents, or only, any other celebrities. But when I thought about it, I realized that when I was their age, I didn't want to have any connection to the Holocaust whatsoever. Now, think about it. I'm Jewish. My grandfather was a Holocaust survivor. I grew up in Israel. And pardon my French, when you're growing up in Israel, you're actually hammered with Holocaust education. But still, I didn't want to have any connection to the Holocaust whatsoever. I never went to Poland, on those educational visits. My feet I never been to Poland. And when we had Holocaust Yom HaShoah, when we had Holocaust Remembrance Day in Israel, I would never, even, turn on the TV, because I didn't want to see the dead bodies. I didn't want to see the atrocities. It's something that, I didn't want to have any connection to it. So if I, Erez, who grew up in Israel, Jewish, my grandfather was a Holocaust survivor, didn't want to have any connection to the Holocaust, why would, let's say, somebody from, a millennial from Lexington, Kentucky would want to engage with that? So I realized that we're actually telling the stories of the Holocaust in the wrong way, in my eyes. The Holocaust, when we're telling the stories of Holocaust survivors, it doesn't have to be dark. It doesn't have to be in black and white. It doesn't have to be gloomy. We have to tell the story of Holocaust survivors in colors. It has to be something with a global message. It has to be something optimistic. We have to speak about the atrocities, but we also need to have to actually show a different angle and a different story. And this is the reason why I decided to create the Humans of the Holocaust project. And I realized that when we're telling the stories of Holocaust survivors, we have to create we have to actually, to spark, we have to ignite a great spark of curiosity in the viewers in order that it will actually, engage with us and engage with the Holocaust survivor stories. And I realized that if we're telling the stories of the Holocaust survivors, it could even be, we can even tell the story of Holocaust survivors in a very, optimistic way. Now, I would like to ask you, what do you think about this picture? What do you think, Joni?
Well, I remember the letter that my father saved that was from his parents that told my father when my dad was in China and they were in Prague that they now had to wear this symbol on their chest. And it was that beginning of wearing that star. So I'm moved by it in a different way, I guess, because I know that really meant the threat to them and identifying them. So I'm not sure how I react to this. I don't know. I would tell you.
What do you think, Mark?
Let me unmute. It looks to me that he's in deep thought and very thankful that he's lived a long life.
Okay, what do you think, Lynn?
I find it a little bit offensive. It just, it sort of makes, to me, it sort of makes light of such a sad and serious subject.
Okay, what do you think, Aaron?
I think it could be absurdist performance art. I find it a very interesting image and the serene joy almost on his face.
Okay, so I will give you the background of this picture. In this picture, you can see Dougal Leitner. He's an Auschwitz survivor. And the first time I spoke with Dougal, he told me that the only thing that actually kept him going while he was in Auschwitz was his sense of humor. So we both realized that his picture and his story has to be something different. And we have to tell his story in an optimistic way. And this is actually, his philosophy for life. And he told me that, look at him. When he's actually, embracing, it's not only holding the yellow star, it's actually embracing, and he's happy and he's hugging the yellow balloon star. And he told me that for him, he's actually taking the symbol that turned him into a subhuman, turned it upside down on its head, and is actually, feel empowered, because he managed to survive Auschwitz, he managed to survive the Holocaust, and he's happy and he's optimistic. And his message to the world is that if Dougal managed to actually to survive Auschwitz, and he found the resilience inside of him to survive the Holocaust, no matter what's actually, going on in your life right now, you will find your resilience to actually to survive or to actually overcome what is actually going on right now in your life. And this is a global message. This is something that you can relate to. You don't have to be Jewish in order to relate to this message. Now, one of my points is that, it's really easy, to preach for the choir and to speak about Holocaust remembrance and to speak about the lessons of the Holocaust when you're speaking, in Israel, or when you're speaking about, to Jewish communities. But if we want to fight anti-Semitism, and if we want to reach out, to outside of the Jewish community, we have to find a way that the message will be a global message. Now, Fred, I see that you're concurring with what I'm saying.
Yes, I am. Go back, just in conversation, the earlier conversation where the millennials were not aware of, the camps and so forth. I think there's two groups, those that are not aware, but then you have those that are the ones that don't believe it and become very ugly and verbal and Charlottesville and what happened and all that crap. So what I'm saying is twofold. One, oh, I don't know about that. And two, this person and group knows about it, but now they're going into the ugliness. Just a thought, going to the shot that we're looking at now, I can see what you said. He's hugging it. He's using humor. He has almost a full smile on his face, but it's on a Mylar balloon, correct?
Yep, it's a balloon.
I'm speaking now personally. That part of it is, I guess, part of his humor. But having once been involved with the Mylar balloon business, latex balloon business, I don't know, it kind of, excuse me, wasn't it a piece of fabric that was used?
No, it was a fabric, but you know that the only thing that we managed to actually to do was is to bring to create this balloon. But Lynn, I would love to hear your thoughts after you heard about the context of the picture and the story behind it. Do you still think that this picture is offensive in your eyes?
Well, it does. The description explanation does clarify a good bit, but I still find it distasteful. My immediate reaction when I see it is discomfort.
Okay, I'm happy that you said that, because we're speaking about art and we're speaking about photography, and if you're not indifferent, it means that this picture actually touched you. You could love it, you could hate it, but you cannot ignore it. And this is exactly what I'm trying to do in this project. I'm trying to make those young millennials listen. And I'm trying to make, to grab the attention of those young millennials. Because if we will continue the way that, that we will publish only the black and white pictures and only the same thing that we are doing, in the past 80 years, the numbers will go higher. You will have survey, in a couple of years, and it won't be 66%. It will be 80, it will be 90% of people who are, ignorant about the Holocaust, unfortunate. Because we are fighting today, we have to create interesting content, and we have to create something that will actually, grab their attention. Now, I can tell you that what I do in my exhibitions and what I do, in social media, that is, I always, I post a picture. There's always, between 200 to 250 words for actually, depicting or actually have like the essence of the story of that Holocaust survivor. And I always have links that gives people the ability to actually go to the full story. And in the full story, Dugo is speaking about everything that happened to him in the Holocaust. He speak about the atrocities, but he also speak about his his motives in life and his way of thinking of life and about his optimism. And I always have also an historical link that will give the context. If he came from Auschwitz, and if something I always give the historical context. So I'm trying to bring in, the people, when they're actually, on their cell phone, I'm trying them, to double click on the picture, to bring them on board. And then if they have the will and they want, to be better informed, they have the ability to do so. So I'm speaking about, yeah, go ahead.
I just have one other comment about this photo. I certainly understand Lynn's comment. I just want to speak, however, to the shock value of this as a positive thing in a way. I was a high school teacher in my career, and I used Mouse often, for many years, a graphic novel about the Holocaust. And there were those, again, including my own mom, who found that distasteful, shocking, whatever, did not agree with that depiction in graphic novel form. Well, the truth is that particular medium was meaningful to a lot of high school kids. And they read that, and probably like many other people you've mentioned, that was their first exposure to this history. So in a sense, when I'm thinking about millennials who are, in my opinion, and I have kids generally that age, who are pretty jaded about some things, but they see this, and whether they know the story or not, it raises questions. It brings ideas to mind about history. So I think there's something to what you are doing in the sense that knowing this could just the Mylar balloon idea, that you're using that as ostensibly to help others remember it. But it might be offensive to some, but I honestly believe that however you can convey some ability for someone to investigate further or ask questions about that time and that place and this person, I applaud it. It might not be my taste, but I think it is provocative enough that it helps to further that understanding.
And I agree with what she said from the standpoint, I've been going into classrooms for about 10 years now as an author who's written 3 books related to this. And to get their attention, I think I agree with your storytelling idea that there has to be hope there. You have to draw them into that piece of the story. And my father grew up probably like this gentleman. He coped with a lot of what had been his past with humor. And, so I agree with your storytelling idea. It did kind of shake me when I saw it, because I personally related to this story of the only, I got to know my grandparents through letters, never them. Mm-hmm. And I know that moment when that happened. So that kind of shook me, but I agree with her. I think you have to draw these younger people in with stories. And I think the darkness of it doesn't make them want to go back and learn more. And that's what I hope for the museum that we're creating too, that it isn't a place you just go once and you're shocked with all that storytelling and then you don't want to return. So I think there's that balance of what you're doing, and I think it's good.
Okay, thank you. So we spoke about, optimism, and we spoke about even a sense of humor, but I'm also, trying to relate, to have a global message. In this picture, you can see Laila Jabarin. And Laila Jabarin was born in the name of Yelena Brzezinski in Yugoslavia. And she spent the first 2 years of her life in a concentration camp in a bunker. And in a miraculous way, she managed to actually survive the Holocaust. And she made Aliyah to Israel, after the Holocaust. And the thing is that, in the age of 16, she met Muhammad, and it was puppy love. And she decided to marry him, and she converted to Islam, and she's living today in Al-Fahim. And she decided to speak about her history and to speak about the fact that she is a Holocaust survivor, because she realized that in the past few years, there's a huge spike, in anti-Semitism all around the world. And there's a big rise in Islamophobia also around the world. And she spoke about the fact that, she spoke about the shooting in the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. And she spoke about the mass shooting that happened in the other side of the world in Christchurch in New Zealand. And she said that there is a thin line that actually, connecting between those two shootings, that the people who pulled the trigger are actually, aiming at people who are minorities. And the thing is that she feels that when she was a kid, when she was actually a baby, people were trying to kill her because she was Jewish. And today there were people who would like to kill her because she's a Muslim. Now, the thing is that, as I said in the beginning, we have to find a way that we have a global message. And she said that we have to fight anti-Semitism, and we have to fight xenophobia, and we have to fight Islamophobia. And this is the reason why she decided to actually, to speak out. Now, think about it, a young kid, from Indonesia, or a young kid from a Muslim country, when he hears this story, he has something that he actually, he has the ability to relate to. He has something that he actually, have the ability to engage with. So This is the reason, why I decided, to tell Laila Jabalin's story. Now, one of the things that I'm trying to do in this project is that it's great, to speak about the Holocaust, and it's great to speak about Holocaust remembrance, but that is only one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is actually that we have to, it's not only about commemorating the memory of the Holocaust, it's also about implementing those valuable lessons. And in this picture, you can see Gidon Lev, and Gidon Lev was also born in Czechoslovakia. He was born in the Sudetenland, and in the age of 3, he became a refugee. And he and his parents and his family, fled to Prague. And during the Holocaust, he was in Theresienstadt camp, and he managed to survive. He and his mother managed to actually, miraculously to survive the Holocaust. And after the war, he got a refugee. Actually, he got a refugee certificate, and he moved to the States, and he went to Brooklyn, and later on he moved to Toronto, and only in 1956 he moved to Israel. And when he told me his story, I remember that in my neighborhood in Florentine, there's this cool graffiti saying we were all once refugee. And I asked him, to join me, and I took his picture. And by the way, if you look closely, I don't know if you have the ability to see this, but all the pictures that you see, in black and white, are actually pictures of Jewish refugees who came to the States, who came to Ellis Island on the 19th century. And I thought this is a good combination, for telling his story. Now, one of the things that actually, Gideon told me is that, he's not telling, governments, what to do concerning refugees. He spoke about what happened, in Israel, about the refugees and asylum seekers who came from Eritrea and Sudan. And he spoke about what happened with refugees in Europe. And he spoke about what happened to refugees and asylum seekers who came to the States, and what happened in the border, what happened in the southern border of the States under the previous administration, where there were actually, actually there was some kind of, they separated between the parents and the kids. And Gideon said, listen, I'm not trying to educate, and I'm not trying to tell governments what to do. The only thing I'm saying is that you have to be mensch. You have to treat refugees in a humane way. If there is a lesson that I can say, that Gideon is saying from that he actually learned on his body, was the fact that he was a refugee. And you have to treat people in a humane way. And usually what I do, in my speaking engagement is when I'm speaking, in front of the high school kids, I always say that, one of the last time that I had a speaking engagement in Florida, it was to a school in the Palm Beach district. And one of the coolest thing was that, I asked those 5th graders, 6th graders, listen, one of you is actually, the governor of Palm Beach. And somebody is coming to your Oval Office and knocking on your door and saying, listen, Mr. Governor, we have a refugee boat is actually, coming to Palm Beach. Are you willing to get him access? Are you willing to let him into Palm Beach? And usually most of the kids will say, listen, it's only one boat. So, go ahead. Let's give them the ability, to enter the United States. And then I tell them, listen, a week later, you don't have one boat, you have 3 boats. What do you do? And in one of those boats, you have kids who are actually, your age. What do you do? And then you have a discussion. Then you see how this picture and how this story is actually a trigger point to speak about policy and speak about, how are we actually, going to relate to this issue. And I've got to tell you that in one of my sessions, which was actually, into a public school, and there was a majority of Afro-American students, one of the students, woke up and, stood up and told me, listen, I can totally understand, it's about human rights. And she said that for her point of view, it's actually relating to Black Lives Matters. Now, I've got to tell you that in the beginning, I didn't thought about the connection in the beginning, but I told myself that if, that young girl took whatever Gideon Lev said about being human and she connected it to her own world, I thought it was amazing. because it showed me that, she took the lessons that Gideon is actually preaching for, and she connected it to the world that she is actually living. And this is exactly what I'm trying to do in Humans of the Holocaust.
Erez, I hate to do this because we could spend the rest of the day talking. This was
Okay,
really-
so Jess, can I have like more three more minutes?
3 more minutes, sure.
Okay, so in this picture, you can see Michael Siduko, and Michael Siduko is the last survivor of the Babi Yar massacre. And when I heard his testimony, I realized that I have to do some kind of a different picture when I'm going to convey his story. Now, as I told you, I grew up in Israel, and usually in Israel, when you think about the Holocaust, you think about the gas chambers, you think about the yellow balloon, you think about the yellow star, you think about Auschwitz, you don't think about bullets. But actually, there's a term saying Holocaust by bullets, which actually means that, during the first period of the Holocaust, over more than 2 million Jews were perished by bullets. And when I heard about this, I realized that I have to do something that will actually, will tell the story of those survivors. And that was one of the most difficult pictures that I took, for this project. And because we're speaking about the Holocaust, I didn't want to do anything, related to Photoshop. So it was really, really complicated, to take this picture. And I'm really happy that I managed to do so. And if you have any questions or any remarks or anything that you want to say, feel free. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad that you were able to add that because that was really remarkable. And we put your contact information in the chat box, and we're so grateful to Erez for joining us today and to all of you for being here. And please join us at an upcoming program soon. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.
Thanks a lot.